A teal and green wave has swept right across the country, wiping out support for both major parties and bringing with it a new age of independent politician. The numbers sitting on the crossbench could now swell to as many as 15, the largest since World War II. So why did it happen and how's it all going to work?
This election has changed Australian politics forever, let's face it.
There's no doubt that our parliament doesn't currently look like our society, and I think that's a real weakness.
I want to bring people together and I want to change the way that politics is conducted in this country.
And she will win very, very easily. So we give the seat to the Teals. Looks like it's going independent again.
Independence.
We expect better.
No longer a rarity.
Saying that one goes Teal.
But now a force to be reckoned with in Canberra's halls of power.
We did it!
And another seat goes Teal.
I'm not quite sure where the phrase teal independence came from, and actually it would be far truer to call us community independence, because that is the thing all of us do have in common.
Coffee with Kylie Tink, who took down the Libs' Trent Zimmerman in North Sydney.
Trent Zimmerman also is leaving federal parliament.
One of a wave of so-called 6 teal independents, credited for sweeping the Morrison government from power.
I don't see us ever working as a bloc per se, which I think is what, you know, at least one of the lines running against us as we came into this politics was, you know, be scared, these people will be disruptive and a negative consequence. But the reality is I think all of us are very committed to the values that brought us into these positions.
Independent by name, but not by nature, the Teals successfully campaigned on similar issues that resonated in their communities.
We had a dysfunctional alliance of the Liberals and the National Party who haven't been able to work together on the single most important issue to this country.
Dr Monique Ryan claimed the high-profile scalp of Josh Frydenberg and Kooyong.
Yeah, sorry, Josh.
It's a loss to the nation.
She traces the coalition's capitulation back to last year's failed Glasgow Climate Conference.
Mr Morrison's performance at Glasgow was embarrassing for us, and it really highlighted to us, but to the rest of the world as well, how far behind Australia was in its thinking about climate change.
Dr Sophie Scamp romped to victory on Sydney's northern beaches, spurred on by Julia Gillard's famous misogyny speech 10 years ago.
I will not be lectured about sexism and misogyny by this man.
This election has been a repudiation of that type of behaviour. I agree. I think that era of Tony Abbott treatment of Julia Gillard is one of the most shameful times in Australian history. I still feel ashamed of that time, of how our female Prime Minister was treated. So yes, let's hope for a much more constructive and respectful way of moving forward, and I think that that's going to happen. We've got a lot more women down there now in Canberra, and let's just see how it goes. I think it'll be a lot more constructive.
The Teal independent wave is set to keep breaking at the next election, according to former Labor Senator turned demographic modeller John Black.
If the Labor Party runs into some adverse outcomes in by-elections between now and 2025, then they could find themselves in trouble. I think also you could see other political groups start to form teal constellations, if you like, or clusters of their own. So if they do, and they have credible candidates, it's going to cause Labor some problems in their safer seats.
From Teals to Greens.
We have completely ended the two-party system here in Australian politics. And they said we couldn't do it.
And Max Chandler Mather's knuckles are red raw, having door-knocked his way to victory in a seat of Griffith, one of 2 confirmed Greens wins in inner Brisbane.
And I think the job of the Greens over the next 3 years is going to be building the capacity to reach out to tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, if not millions more people across this country.
Labor now holds just 5 of 30 seats in Queensland.
People do have conflict fatigue. They want to work with people, and I'll work with people, whether it's across benches or the opposition.
So there might be the victors, but there's no escaping Labor suffered a number of flesh wounds.
Young people are worried about the future of the planet.
Former Labor Foreign Minister Bob Carr believes it's not too late for Anthony Albanese to stop the bleeding.
I think if he performs as confidently as I know he can and makes these decisions, delivers on a new sort of politics, then I think the electorate will see a side of him we haven't seen up till now. I think he can emerge. He's got the potential to emerge as a Prime Minister of the people.
But there's little doubt that both parties are hemorrhaging voters. And for the Libs, it was an absolute whipping. But it's rare for both major parties to suffer significant swings against them in the same election.
It's been a process that's been going on for about 30 years. The major parties have both been losing primary votes. The Liberals have lost primary votes because they've lost the support of professional women. And it's one of the fastest growing demographic and occupational groups in the country.
People do want to have a voice in how politics is done in Australia. They do want the people that they send to the House of Representatives to represent them and fight for the things that are important to them. And the reality is that there's a real sense that neither of the major parties are actually listening to the people that, you know, they were created to represent.
The whole paradigm has shifted and the face of Australian politics is different. This is no flash in the pan. You know, we're here to stay.
For too long, there's been that very adversarial two-party system, short-term vision, very, tit for tat, schoolroom antics, and it's time to improve that.
So as Anthony Albanese looks to assert himself, starting with a vocal media pack...
You will not get the call earlier because you yell, okay? Like, can we just, on day one, get that clear?
The question now begs, could a mishmash of independents actually groom a future Prime Minister?
Well, what I can say is if it's what the Australian people want, then yes, we'll absolutely see that. And it would make sense that if at some point in time the balance tips and it is the independents that outweigh those in the major parties, then you should see a government formed that maybe draws on all three avenues to bring the best people to the table to make the decisions, to help make the decisions going forward.